Hello, YouTube. This is Dumber Orange 927 here, and here I am presenting a video on Star Wars. After all, it's less than a month before Star Wars release. I'm a massive Star Wars fan. I'm basically a nerd on it, and I just wanted to answer this because this kind of been a trend among Star Wars fans. This questionnaire thing, so I thought, why not try one on my own? So, with that out of the way, let's get started. Jedi or Sith? I am a Sith. Now, ideally, as a Star Wars nerd, keep in mind, try to know a lot about this to get my point. I'm a hardcore Sith sympathizer due to Sith mythology, due to the Sith code. The Sith are more flexible, they're more driven as individuals, unlike the Jedi, which are more just of the lines of hypocrites to my view. The problem with the Jedi is that they try to encourage you to do all these things that try to make you perfect, even though they themselves don't even do it. Not just that, but if you read the lore of Star Wars, the Sith maybe were the aggressors, but the Jedi didn't play nice either. And yes, the Sith may have refused to surrender during the Great Hyperspace War, but that didn't call upon the Jedi and the Republic to try to utterly destroy their empire, commit cultural genocide, and attempt to destroy the Sith race. I'm aware that the Sith have done similar attributes, but I'm more willing to accept their more practical reasonings and their more understanding reasonings than the bullcrap spilled by the Jedi. So, I'd be a Sith. Favorite world? Coruscant. I'm a city boy at heart. It's an interesting place. With the 3 layers and, it's the home world of, the Republic and the Jedi. It's kind of a cool place. Besides that, the fact that it's one big city. Besides that, I would like to... Corbin. Corbin would be really cool because, it was basically the Sith homeworld. And, it was basically the hub, and it has a lot of ancient temples to show Sith mythology, and just overall, it would be a nice place to be. I also am interested now. I wouldn't want to live here, but it'd be nice to visit Solace due to I like its rocky environment, and the lava is, cool. Unlike other places like Mustafar, the climate isn't too bad, but it's like the lava is still there. So it'd be a nice place to visit, maybe even set up like a rent there, I guess. Favorite species? Honestly, I don't really know. I never really cared upon what species were which. Now, I am a fan of some, like Wookiees and Zembraks and also Iridonians, but I'm really not really big on which species. I'm more interested upon their ability in the Force and just overall how they are as a character. Favorite vehicles? Well, one, as a ship, I would so love the Malevolence. That ship I fell in love with that ship in the Clone Wars series. A ship with many amounts of cannons and massive ion cannon that could deplete cruisers, and a ship that is 3 times the size of a regular Republic cruiser. I'm in. Besides that, I'm also a big fan of the TIE Interceptor due to its high speeds and its massive firepower against fighters. Type of lightsaber color, and fighting style. As for the type, I would really just go for a standard hilt, as I want it to be sleek though. I don't want a bunch of just regular, I don't want a bunch of bulky stuff. I just want it to be slim. I want it to be easily wielded and have a lot of flexibility. My color would be purple, and my fighting style would be a mix of Xian and Tajem So. I back it up with Ataru due to Tajem So's lack of mobility, and I would back it up a little bit just to add a mix of my own personal base style. I'd add a bit of Makashi in the mix. If you were a Jedi, which master would you want? Honestly, believe it or not, I would actually get Qui-Gon Jinn. Now, don't get me wrong, I get he's not the best Jedi by terms of just pure skill, but the fact I'd choose him over ideology. Qui-Gon has been known to be very against some of the dictations of the Jedi Council and even the code itself. He's more flexible than other Jedi, and that's really what I need if I was gonna be a Jedi. And, not just that, but while people do give him hardship, he managed to use Ataru for over 15 minutes for a short burst fighting style. That's saying something. If you were a Sith, which master would you want? Honestly, I am in a mix between Darth Revan and Darth Vader, because both of them have great ideologies and beliefs that I agree with. With Vader, I would want him to train me. Yes, the hardship, you have to understand that being a Sith through training is going to be hard no matter what, with the lifestyle. But I at least want Sith that encourage me to thrive to be better, rather than restricting me in order to give an advantage on their own power. And both Revan and Vader provide these benefits. In particular, I've looked up the history of how Vader has trained Starkiller, and he has trained him to the point where it allowed Galen to be better than Vader himself. Not only that, but Vader would personally train him through sparring matches, something that I agree with. In terms of the benefits though, I would have to pick Revan, due to the fact that Revan would treat me as an equal partner once when my training is completed. And through the reputation, you have to consider that Revan was one of the greatest lightsaber duelists of all time. Granted, so was Vader, but like I said, when it comes to benefits, I want a master who will treat me right, barely acknowledging himself over me. And that is the kind of thing I need. Honestly, I would be the Malik in a nutshell, except with my own personalized way, but just the connection between the master and apprentice. If you were a Sith, then what would your Darth name be? Darth Phaeton. The reason I chose this is because Darth Phaeton means in Greek Phaethon, which was a Greek guardian who guarded Athena's temple. And the reason I believe that I would choose that name is because I believe as a Sith, it is our responsibility and duty to protect the original Sith beliefs. You have to consider that Sith have evolved to be very corrupt people as time went on. And the honor and valor of the Sith, by the time it got to Palpatine's era, no longer existed, with few exceptions. But the fact of the matter is, I'd choose this name because I would want to protect the Sith ideology through its beginning. Not only that, but I believe it is best to understand the perspectives of both the light and the dark and fully try to master both. Favorite film? Honestly, I'm in a mix between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. For both movies just have great ideals that I love. The Empire Strikes Back has better character development and overall the twist was insanely good, but I like Return of the Jedi through its conflict of Vader, the Emperor, and Luke, due to the fact that each of them were always trying to turn one another to their side. Not only that, But while Return of the Jedi does have its flaws that I do acknowledge without doubt, it just seems that it has the most variety in terms of stuff that the movie has. I'm also a big fan of Revenge of the Sith. While it is not my favorite film, it's worth mentioning that I really do like Revenge of the Sith because of the fact that, one, its strong emphasis on lightsaber duels, and it's the first time that the Sith really get their own perspective in a film, through Palpatine explaining to Anakin in his conflict upon the Jedi of how they can be hypocrites. It's really an ideology that I would really like explored more. Not only that, but the Order 66 was a very emotional scene that I really come to enjoy. Least favorite film: Attack of the Clones. The romance was terrible, the dialogue was terrible, and very little action. It was just, no. It's honestly the film out of the saga that I watched the least, and in my view, it's kind of a disgrace of a Star Wars film. If you could write your own Star Wars novel, what would it be about? Honestly, I would be interested in sort of another Clone Wars novel, but instead of the Clone Wars, I would have a story during Revenge of the Sith and after, telling Order 66 and all that from a clone's perspective, through the ideology of how they have to turn against the leaders that they have fought alongside for 3 years. And it would also be interesting because it would convert the guard transition from them being the clone troopers that were good and honestly the very, protectors of the Jedi, to the stormtroopers that we know today. And I would like the transfer in history story of how they slowly evolved to that. Which film has my favorite soundtrack? Revenge of the Sith. Like, come on, man. The soundtrack is just classic. It's that mix of very, what Revenge of the Sith does right with its soundtrack is that it never produces any music that's overly silly. Looking at You, Return of the Jedi, it's really a true masterwork of how it shows a mix of dark, but at the same time fun music, but like I said, while being silly. Do I collect figures? No. Now, I am given figures here and there, and remotely I do enjoy having some of the figures. I do. A lot of them I have in the attic now, but it's like, I appreciate owning them. But it's like, do I collect figures? No. Now, if there's ever a figure that I run into and it's like, okay, this is really cool and stuff, I may just buy it to display, but it's like, I'm not an active collector. So that answers that. What are the best things about the EU? Honestly, in my view, the best things about the EU is the not so much the darkness driven, but it's the fact that it turns the Star Wars saga or just universe more realistically. I enjoy the attributes of how that happens, of the realism behind it. Not only that, but I appreciate the way it tells stories upon characters that we would barely connect to. For example, Darth Vader. What was he in the original trilogy? A Jedi who turned evil, who just became a cyborg monster. That's really what he was in the original trilogy. But then, after the prequels, they wrote these comics, these novels about Vader, of how the lifestyle he had to go through. The fact that every second of his life is torture, and not only that, but the way he had to completely rebuild himself from the ground up in both lightsaber technique and force abilities, and compensate for his physical and force ability weaknesses. It's a very interesting story, and it allows you to actually invoke sympathy for people that you would normally never invoke sympathy towards. What are the worst things about the EU? Honestly, almost every other person has mentioned it. Too many people working on the same thing. The fact of the matter is that people continue to add to the Clone Wars era. So many different ways of approaching the same area because they want to use the same characters that we've all grown accustomed to rather than building their own original characters. I get that my idea is in the Clone Wars era for my novel, but you have to understand that I am doing it during the Revenge of the Sith era and during the changing of the guard, not so much just during the war itself. I'm approaching the end of the war and starting the beginning of the Jedi Purge, not so much just the Clone Wars itself. What does Star Wars mean to you? Star Wars, in my view, is a way to reference everything that happens, everything that stands. You know, it's a kind of a view of a bigger scale to the real world. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not some loony. I can tell the difference between fiction and reality, but the fact that Star Wars references so many different things is really a cool, clear way to understand what's going on in the real world. And not only that, but you know, it teaches you some things of martial arts and overall a calm mindset and overall the two-sided beliefs of multiple paths. So yeah, that's really what I believe in, and you know, I think overall this is what everything is. So that's all the questions, guys, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like this video up, subscribe. I'll give you the links to the Q&As that inspired me to make this one, and also I'll put all the questions in the description below so you can give your own answers to these Q&As, either in the comments or preferably in a separate video. So I hope you enjoyed, guys. This is DemoOrange927, and peace out.